I feel like mental health for me is a thing that doesn't really get talked about. It's harder for us to express our feelings because we're taught young to bottle them up. My name is Tobe Chukwudu Bemwigwe. I'm an Igbo boy from the southwest side of Houston, Texas, and I'm here to talk with Muhammad and Jordan about emotions, feelings, mental health. And you know what I'm saying? We're just gonna let the spirit move.
I'm Jordan, I'm 12 years old.
I'm Muhammad. This is my stepson. I just call him my son.
As a father, it's your responsibility to lead your children into being mentally healthy, emotionally healthy.
Sometimes when I cry, I won't know how I'm feeling or why I'm crying.
I just grew up never feeling like it was okay to cry. And so he really forced me to have to reconnect with the kid that didn't get to cry.
That's beautiful. In the society that we were brought up in, it's very hard on little black boys. So you have to navigate feelings and emotions so the world don't get you. We had to learn why cage birds but we fly, even though they poison the air. We don't cry, we gon' take our piece of the pie.
Well, good evening, good people. It is an honor to be with you this evening. Welcome to, in the immortal words of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince from all the way back in 1988, I'm showing my age here. Sometimes parents just don't understand. A virtual kickback conversation focused on, quite simply, how we talk to our kids, and specifically on how parents and caregivers, and really anybody who loves our babies, can support their mental health and their emotional well-being. Can you think of any more important topic that we could be getting into tonight? My name is Joshua Dubois. I'm the CEO of Values Partnerships and Gauge, a social impact and a market research firm, and I am beyond honored to be one of your hosts for tonight. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had trouble getting your kids or other kids in your life, mentors, folks that you're a caregiver for, another young person in your space, your circle? Have you ever had any challenge getting them to open up about how they're doing? Take a second to think about that. And as you're thinking about that, let me ask you another question. Do you know any young people that you can sort of imagine their face even now who are going through some stuff right now? Whether that's struggling with anxiety, trauma, feeling overwhelmed, somebody who's unpacking something that may look like depression, other challenges in their life. Is there anyone that you can think about as I ask that question? As a parent, I know that I have had lots of challenges getting my little babies to open up. And that is exactly what we're going to get into tonight. Because listen, we've partnered with Pivotal Ventures, the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, and the Ad Council on this event to focus on helping parents and caregivers break down those walls and support their kids' mental health as a part of the Sound It Out campaign. I absolutely love Sound It Out, y'all. It's all about how to talk to young people, how to use the power of music and conversation to get kids to open up. You can find out more about it at sounditouttogether.org. But listen, we don't just have a website, although the website's awesome. We have real live folks, some amazing voices who are going to walk us through this and get into the topic together. First, I am so excited to introduce as our celebrity host for tonight's event, Kevin Fredericks and Melissa Fredericks, better known to you all as Kev on Stage and Miss Kev on Stage. Now, you all know Kevin and Melissa because Kevin keeps us rolling, laughing in stitches through his various platforms every day. But what you may not know is behind the laughs, they are, in my view, perhaps the most dynamic trailblazers in media and entertainment today. That's not an overstatement. Because listen, during the height of COVID, they launched Keep Your Distance Comedy, putting a bunch of other comedians on and helping us stay connected and laughing during that difficult time. They have their own streaming platform. We're talking about all these different platforms that are out there that are part of bigger conglomerates. They created their own thing, Kev on Stage Studios, which you can find in the App Store. It's awesome. I've been on it. It's really, really great content. They are traveling around the country touring. Kevin has created a masterclass, and all of that together, there's a reason why earlier this year, Kev on Stage won the NAACP Image Award for Most Outstanding Social Media Personality. Listen, Kev on Stage and Miss Kev on Stage are doing their thing, but they're also here because they're parents who are trying to figure out this parenting thing together, and we are so honored to have them as hosts. So Kevin and Melissa, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Josh. We are here more in our parental capacity than our social media capacity. If you don't know, we have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. And like most parents, we are trying to create a safe and supportive environment for them to grow up with. You know, we trying the gentle parenting thing. You know, we grew up differently. Mental health was not a topic that was addressed that I can remember.
No, definitely not.
Elementary, middle school, and stuff like that. But it is a topic that our children are familiar with and something we want to be better at. So we are very glad to be here with, each other as parents, to talk to experts, to talk to other parents, to talk with us, the parental community, because it takes a village.
It definitely takes a village. Like Kevin said, we are so excited to be here and be hosting an event that is really important to Black and Latino communities. We're having candid, honest conversations about mental health, and specifically about mental health as it relates and affects our kids and what we could do to be a support system for our kids. We've been parenting for 16 and 14 years, but we've only one time have parented a 16 and a 14-year-old. So we can use all the help we can get. So tonight we are set to learn, to grow, to support each other, to create an environment where you guys can ask questions. We'll have other parents and experts on here, and we'll just all learn and glean from one another.
Yeah, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I think in today's day and age, that village is digital. Often, it's not necessarily only the people in your neighborhood or only your parents. It's people like Josh and the experts and people who from all over the country. Shoot, sometimes we need help with math homework. We put it on Facebook, and a parent be like, go to this website.
Yes.
We're just doing that same thing with mental health, which is, I'm very glad that it's not such a taboo topic, but also I think there's a lot for us to learn still from each other today. And I think all we really want from this tonight is that we all leave here better parents. So with that, Joshua, it's all yours.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And you're exactly right. Listen, first time I'm doing this, and there's no manual for this thing. We are figuring it out in real time together. And so we're so grateful for spaces like this. Listen, again, tonight's discussion is brought to you by the Sound It Out campaign. It's sounditouttogether.org. And it's all about focusing on parents and caregivers and helping them figure out how to open up conversations with their kids using the power of music, conversations, to create space, to spark dialogue with the young people around you. And before we begin, you saw a little glimpse of this, but want to share a powerful PSA featuring Toby Enigwe. Some of you all may know him. He's a Nigerian-American rapper from Houston, Grammy nominee. This is not his dope song with Paul Wall. It has nothing to do with that. It is instead a PSA, although that one is pretty amazing, is instead a PSA focused on mental health. And so let's take a listen. Alex, if you can roll that for us.
We come from where I feel like mental health for me is a thing that doesn't really get talked about. It's harder for us to express our feelings because we're taught young to bottle them up. My name is Tobe Chukwu. I'm an Igbo boy from the southwest side of Houston, Texas, and I'm here to talk with Muhammad and Jordan about emotions, feelings, mental health. And you know what I'm saying? We're just gonna let the spirit move.
I'm Jordan. I'm 12 years old.
I'm Muhammad. This is my stepson. I just call him my son.
As a father, it's your responsibility to lead your children into being mentally healthy, emotionally healthy.
Sometimes when I cry, I won't know how I'm feeling or why I'm crying.
I just grew up never feeling like it was okay to cry. And so he really forced me to have to reconnect with the kid that didn't get to cry.
That's beautiful. In the society that we were brought up in, it's very hard on little black boys. So you have to navigate feelings and emotions so the world don't get you.
We had to learn what cage birds sing, but we fly, even though they poison the air. We don't cry, we gon' take our piece of the pie.
Wow, awesome stuff. I don't know about y'all, Kevin, Melissa, but that hit home for me. Love hearing from Brother Toby there.
Yeah, I thought we was gonna be laughing and stuff. You want to just hit me in the heartstring, punch me in the stomach. You know, I was like, hey, Josh, I thought we was gonna smile and laugh and learn.
I love seeing black men have an opportunity to be emotional, but know that Kev is very emotional.
I'm a thug, Josh. Don't let her fool. I'm from the street, bro. I've been to jail, Josh.
You may have been in Twitter jail, Kev. All righty. Listen, we're going to get into it now. And so delighted to have some real life parents join us. Excited to welcome Daisy Rivera and my good buddies, Nkosi and Helene Nelson, who are living this thing out every day. Hey, Daisy. Hey, Kosi and Helene. How y'all doing?
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Good to see y'all.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Hey. All right. Let's get into it. First, just to level set, just tell us a bit about y'all's families. How many kids you have, their ages, and what's happening with them right now? What stage in life are they in? What are they unpacking right now? Kevin, Melissa, maybe we'll start with you. I know you mentioned at the beginning, but just give us the high level recap of the Kev on Stage household.
Sure. We have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. The most difficult part about our lives, I would say right now, is our 16-year-old is dating.
Yes.
Which feels weird to even say
aloud.
It just went from, I don't even realize it wasn't even girls were cooties. It just was nothing.
It was nothing to I have a girlfriend.
I have a girlfriend and I want to go on a date. I was like,
go on a date.
Ain't no I like girls, just I have a girlfriend now. And
wow.
He hugged her up in my face, Josh. He hugged her and looked me dead in my eyes and dared me to do something.
Yeah.
So, and our youngest is starting high school, just started high school this year. And he's, listen, it's funny that we're hosting this because we still trying to figure out how to get our son to sound it out, talk with us. And the funny thing is his barber, when he's finished with his haircut, he said, man, JoJo just poured his feelings out to me. He just sharing. And then I'd be like, yo, what happened? He's like, nothing, man. That was just me and the barber talk. Talk to me like that. Why are you talking to the barber like I'm your daddy?
It's wild, man.
Talk with you, man.
It's wild. It's so crazy. I do the same thing when they're younger than y'all's kids, but my 7-year-old at the dinner table, how was your day today? Tell me one thing that happened. Nothing, fine, recess, etc. But for him though, it's right before when it's his bedtime and it's time to go to bed. That's maybe where I can get a little bit more information. Hey, Kosi and Helene, over to y'all, man. Tell us about the Nelson household.
Yeah, again, happy to be here. So the Nelson household looks like the two of us plus our two daughters. So we have a 14, well, she'll be 14 tomorrow. She's in the 8th grade. Yep, happy early birthday. And then we have an 8-year-old. I feel like I need to say like 8 and 7/8 because she'll be 9 next month. And she's in the 3rd grade. So we have an 8th grader and a 3rd grader. And it's they keep things interesting. They keep us on our toes. They're wonderful girls. They're, good students. We have some interests with the teenager and boys. So we're trying to figure that out, but it's not dating. So we're going to hold off on that as long as we can.
Hold off as long as y'all can.
But yeah, they're wonderful girls.
And then what's on our minds?
Yeah. So what's on our minds is, are our kids okay? And to piggyback off of what Kev said, sound is good. And I'll just stop there. You don't even have to talk to me, just make sound. And whether it's tears, grunts, whatever, I'll take it. Cause sometimes it's one word or nothing or a look, and we just want to keep our girls, making some kind of sound, preferably talking to us, letting us know what's going on with themselves and even their friend groups too, because that's sometimes a strong signal of like what is happening in the hallways and what the word on the street is. And we care about their village and want them to be around, positive, values-driven young people. And usually those folks are over here and they're an extension, or our parenting is extended to them, and they're an extension of our family. So yeah, we just want to make sure our kids are okay. There's been a lot going on and a lot coming at them fast. And it's definitely more than we experienced as children. We recognize that day one, and we try to equip ourselves and them with as much as we can, whether we experience that like therapy or not. We want to afford them every opportunity to talk to somebody.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, guys. And Daisy Rivera, over to you. Tell us about your children.
Okay, so I have a son, he's 29, and I have a 16-year-old daughter. It was quite easy raising a boy, but it's kind of difficult raising a girl. I think my biggest challenge with her is she doesn't open up too much, and she feels like she knows everything and I know nothing.
Funny how that works after all that life experience. You don't know anything anymore, right?
Yes. I don't know anything, and she knows everything. And and getting her to open up a little bit more, it's a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, indeed. Well, and let's stick with that topic for a minute. We talk about getting kids to open up. Just kind of practically, what do y'all do? What do you say? How do you approach having conversations? What does that look like in your house? Kevin, Melissa, maybe we'll start with you.
Go ahead. For my 14-year-old, I actually literally just started to tell him what's happening in your world is important to me. And I mean, like, literally, that's a sentence that I tell him. So if your friends at school got detention, I just want to hear about it, because that's something that happened in your world and I'm interested in it.
Right.
And so as I started to tell, like, he would tell me like little things kind of in passing, like, oh, ex-friend sat down and the chair fell and we thought it was so funny. Not literally that, but whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that is funny. Tell me more about it. He's like, this is so dumb. I'm like, it's not dumb. If it happened in your world, I want to know about it. It's important to me, your friends, your friend group, what they're talking about, what they're doing, even down to their parents. I started being like, obviously, but really good friends with specifically one little boy. They're like really, really good friends. They're on a soccer team together. They want to change schools together. And I was like, I want to know the mom. So if something happens, you want to go, can I go to the mall? Well, if I don't know them, and that's actually how I break it down. When you ask me to do something and I don't know the friend, do you understand how that makes me uncomfortable? So it actually serves and is in your best interest to let me in on your world, because then I feel comfortable with letting you out and going to see your friends.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Melissa said. I am the jokester of the parents, but sometimes that can be used as a way in. So I'm like, hey man, you on drugs? Y'all been talking about sex? Y'all been looking at them videos? I need you see Meg Thee Stallion. What's going on with that? The thing that's funny about that for me is like when they finally come to you and like really share something, trying to remain calm and like not freak out. Because I remember one time I probably did this joke for about a year. Every 4 or 5 days, you on them drugs? Y'all been on that sex? I know somebody smoked that weed. And then one day my son was just like, actually, man, didn't even say nothing. I didn't even play around. I was just driving. He's like, actually, one of my friends skipped school and they stole a car and one of the kids was smoking weed. And I was just like,
whoa, yep.
It took everything in me to remain at least calm on the surface, because I know that if I freak out,
and
then they
overreact.
overreact.
Who's the friend? Tell me
Who
about
been
it.
smoking weed?
Tell me,
You ain't going to that school no more.
That's not your friend no more.
Homeschool. Matter of fact, Catholic homeschool. We Catholic now. Like if I freak out like that, then I'm not going to be a safe space to share that. And I remember this was going around online. I really liked it. It was like, your kids are going to get in trouble and do something, and you don't want to be, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I can't tell my dad. It's okay. I've got to be able to tell my mom and dad, and then we'll figure out what to do. And in order to be that safe space for them, you have to prepare that safe place first. Before they need it, they got to know they can go to it. Wow. And if you don't do the pre-work, then they won't come to you when it's time. Right. So Listen, Melissa, we were joking about that, but this is our first time parenting.
Yeah.
We didn't know nothing. They just handed that baby to us in the hospital, and we was like, all right, we don't. How you put the car seat in? So, so that's why I'm that's where we are right now.
Yeah, that's great, y'all. I mean, there's so many gems there. First, it may seem simple, but it's actually profound. Looking them in the eyes and saying, what happens in your world matters to me, right? Just straight up, just being clear about that. And then that instinct to pause and not respond when you hear something that maybe is surprising or shocking or what have you, and not just go straight up into response mode or teaching mode or scolding mode or what have you, but to pause and prepare that place for them. That's really good. Helene and Coast, I'd love to go over to you all. How do you bring it out? How do you bring out the noises, even a grunt?
Yeah. I'm grateful that we're, I think, using some of the same playbook, because I think that pause is really critical. You're going to hear something edgy. The more you ask for them to open up, you're going to hear something that might be shocking or edgy. And oftentimes the first thing that comes to mind is probably not the best thing to say. And so pause is super critical. I think letting them know what I'd say is like, we're on the same team. And that's part of the, what matters in your life matters to me. I'm only here to serve you in a sense. I think of even as a servant leadership, I'm trying to help you to get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And so
facilitate your greatness.
Yeah. So this is the why behind it. Some I think tactical things we do is create predictable spaces. And that's part of at dinner, we're all going to sit down and we're going to eat dinner together, and Dad's going to ask me a question. I've gotten better with just how's your day, and coming up with some creative questions and thinking of would you rather questions, and even using the conversation starter pack to just get things started, but having a predictable time that they can expect that you're going to check in on them. And so dinner time is that for us. The morning is really critical for us, and so being intentional about the morning, making that connection in the morning, similar to kind of even the Sound It Out initiative. We do music sometime with my oldest daughter in the car. I let her choose the music. It gives me some insight of what's on her mind. And so as a part of that, it really is listen more than you talk. That's critical for us, and just stay curious. Ask more questions, pause on giving advice, but just stay curious. And I think lean in with empathy. And as Helene mentioned, we realize our kids are going through a lot right now. Yeah. And as much as I like to think, oh man, these privileged kids, they're, in a lot of ways, their lives are much better than mine, but in a lot of ways, and a lot more challenging. Just with the, just constant scrutiny, constant surveillance. I mean, they're always on. And so just having empathy, and that's going to generate kind of curiosity. And the last thing I would just say is consistency. And so part of that is that showing up every single day, not expecting a result, because most of the time, and it's going to take some time to get there. And so if you show up and you're excited and you think you're going to get the conversation you hope for, and you don't, show up the next day with that same attitude and that same curiosity. And it can be tough, because sometimes you not only get silence, but sometimes you get a little roar back, and it doesn't feel good. And you're like, you know what? I'm just going to fall. But showing up every single day is going to show that, I'm in it for the long haul, and I love you. And
so let me ask a question, Coach C. When they play the music, you let them play whatever come out. They play Little Baby.
Listen, the 8-year-old is not in the car, but here's the thing. She walks around with the AirPods in, or it's one or two, or she got to move her hair back so we can see what's going on. So half the time she's not listening, right? So we're like, did you hear her? And then it's just curiosity, what are you listening to, right? what is the influence, or what's being piped in on a regular, and let's hear what that is. And if you're listening to it, it should feel like a safe space enough amongst your parents where you can play it out loud, right? Yeah. And some of that is letting them know what we.
That gave me anxiety to hear it.
But I tell you,
I saw it was trending the other day, and I'm like, oh, if my daughter was playing that, my goodness.
They listen to it. It's interesting.
You first start off, you're trying to figure out, you're like, what does that mean? And it's they're like, Dad, you know what that means? I don't know. What is it talking about? Say it in your own words now. And then you were like,
Your own words.
you know what it
Yeah.
means. So you're like, okay.
So we can talk about
yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
Daisy, what do you do? You and see, and your kids are in different spaces. You have a 29-year-old and you have a teenager. How do you, with that teenager? What has worked? Any tools or any tricks recently that have gotten her to open up? Anything that you're experimenting with in your house?
Well, someone had just spoke about it. From my experience, I remember my daughter sharing something intimate with me, and like I just like kind of lost it. And I guess from my reaction, she pulled away from me, and that's why she stopped sharing with me. So I had to build my trust again with her for her to open up, and it's been a little bit challenging for me.
Yeah, but it's a great example, and thank you for being vulnerable.
Yes.
And well, listen, we have all been there. I had to say, like, no matter what they say, I have to keep my reaction even,
Yes.
right? And that's just not the way we grew up. We grew up where it's perfectly allowable. It's a part of parenting to have that big response and why are you doing that and blah blah blah. But ultimately, it only hurts. I mean, maybe it hurts them, but it hurts me because then I can't go back. I got to rebuild that trust, just like you said, Daisy. So, I mean, it's so true. It's really true. Hey, let me ask you a question. Part of what we're doing with this campaign is connecting to the faith community. Are there any ways, and this can be for anyone, that faith plays a role in your conversations with your kid? Is it helpful in any way? How does it intersect? Coach and Lynn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you guys have recently found a new church. How is that, a part of this conversation, or anything there?
Yeah, we grew up in the church, both of us, and we find value in it. We find that centering, our family and our own family values, letting the church be and the community that it brings, being an extension of our own, village, right, is super important to see. To have our children see us like practice our faith is really important too. That it's not just about what we do on Sunday; it's about how we carry that work forward. It's our moral compass. It's all of these things. It's how we treat people. It's how we serve our community. So it is faith and spirituality is woven through every single thing that we do. It's been exciting to be on a journey. COVID did what it did. And so there was a slight pause, with us all on going to church, doing what we could, turning on YouTube or some type of streaming service and making it happen. But it's nothing like being in a community in person with believers, letting our kids have, age appropriate like relationships and teachings about their faith, discovering that for themselves and supporting that is extremely important. Both our daughters go to a sleepaway camp during the summer that is Christian focused, but kids from all different walks can go there, and that has moved mountains for them as well. And nothing can, I think, speak to someone's development more than like peer connection and having folks your age on that same faith journey with you that can relate to you, that has the same peer pressure, the same technology, everything coming at you fast. Like it's been remarkable to get hooked up, and I'm just excited to see kind of where that takes us. But faith is really important.
Yeah, and I'll jump into there was a time, but recently, probably a couple of months ago, where I was like, man, is this gonna be the next 4 years for us? I was like, this is crazy. I was like, and I turned to Lynn and I was like, we can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Like God is gonna have to be a part of this because I can't do it alone. And as Helen mentioned, like the community aspect is really critical. We talk to our oldest daughter all the time. It's like, you're getting advice from someone that is like your age,
right?
That like trying to figure it out too. It's like,
right.
Talk to mom. And so for them to be, in relationship with folks that, would assume have the same value system is really helpful. The other piece that I'll call out is like a tenet of faith for us is like gratitude.
Yeah.
And that's just been something we've been trying to lean in, especially as sometimes my daughter's been battling, just depression and just being sad oftentimes. And so just being able to pull back and have them to shift perspective and think about, like, what are you grateful for? And like, let's be grateful.
Small things.
And like, that's been a really helpful conversation. The last thing I'll say is, and it goes to Helen mentioned like showing and demonstrating faith. Actually, I have a prayer call every Tuesday, and we rotate like who might close out the prayer. And today I actually closed it out.
Yep.
And I was going in, y'all. It was. I should have recorded. It was a powerful.
I am a member of this prayer group, and that's why he is quoting his prayer.
And I looked over, and my daughter was in the room where she could hear me, and I was like, because she saw me doing it, because I'm asking her to do it, and she saw me do it, and I was like, man, money.
Coach, that's big, man. I was gonna say the you know, it's really about, you know, it's yes, it's the words you say, but it's also just kind of living life and them seeing that this thing is real for you, right? It was so crazy. I mean, and I have lots of flaws, like got lots of things I need to work on, but one thing I do try to do is you know, for me, my faith is Christianity, and so I read my Bible, and I try to not like hide that from them. It's sort of around. In fact, it was so much so when my oldest son August was 2, turning 3 and going to school, he just thought the word for book was Bible. So he went into school and he was like, "Oh, look at all these Bibles." He just had no, because he saw Dad with his Bible, and so it was just sort of a part of the pattern that that he had and that he learned as well. Yeah. Anything else on this faith point? We have one more question after that, and then we're going to go to some experts. Anything else on?
I mean, I think just to your point, it is about how you treat people and how you live your life. Your actions are going to be more than what you ever could say. Your kids see what you model more than what you tell them. How you treat people, how you talk to people, how you treat homeless people. Are you saying thank you? No, thank you. Do you treat them with respect? You know, a lot of parenting when we were being parented was top down. We weren't given the opportunity to earn. Like Daisy was saying, she had to rebuild that trust. You know, my parents, that wouldn't. What they wouldn't even talking like that. Right. So, you know, this era of parenting, I think we're trying to treat that relationship differently, and I think that's it, a lot in our actions.
Just to add that, we live a very like non-traditional lifestyle, especially in comparison in the way that we were raised, where we went to church, you know, on Sunday, on Wednesday, on Thursday. We physically had to go there. The way that we live now, just because of the industry that we're in, that's not always the case. But what you find is there are ways to incorporate faith and Christianity and building blocks about what it means to be a good human in your child that doesn't necessarily have to happen inside of the church. So I say all of that to say that we're still living this life, even though our lifestyle is very different. Because I know for me, I personally did struggle with that. Like, my kids aren't going to church the way that I did, but that doesn't mean I'm not instilling some of those same values, even down just really quickly as a small example. Kevin and I, we work out in the mornings. We're trying to get our lives together because we turned 40 this year. And so we have a driver come pick up the kids on the days that we're working out, and they were continually running late. And so we had a conversation with them, and it really was not only about like just the necessity of what it means to be punctual, but also about respecting people's time. He is doing a service for us, but he is still a person, and his time is still valuable, and you need to respect that. Even that is an example. It doesn't matter the job description, what they're doing. I don't care if they're rubbing down toilets. You treat that person with respect, period. That was just a lesson that we taught them. Again, we live a non-traditional lifestyle, but those values and the things that you need to just be a good human are things that we can still incorporate into our kids' lives.
Yeah, agree. That's you know, I'd rather, somebody said I'd rather live a sermon than hear one preached, and you know, things out. Hey y'all, one last question that we're gonna go over to our expert panel, but I just think this one is hugely important to get to. While you're looking out for your kids' mental health, what are your own self-care and mental health practices? What are, you know, some things that you do to make sure you have enough in the tank to give to your kids? Daisy, maybe I'll go to you to start off, you know, and then we can go to some others, and then we'll move to the next panel. How do you take care of yourself?
I really don't. You know, I'm constantly working. I have 2 jobs, but from time to time, I do like read scriptures from the Bible, and usually like in the morning, I like to take at least 10 to 15 minutes to go into the Bible and read the word and do my prayers, and that's what keeps me sane through the day.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good, Daisy. And one, just again, appreciate your vulnerability. A lot of folks are in the same spot where we're, running between this thing and that thing. But even that 10 minutes is important. It's anchoring for your day. And I pray that you have other places of still water that you can just come alongside and just kind of rest and get some peace
Thank
over
you.
the course of your day. What about y'all, Helena Coast? What you think there from a self-care perspective? And
Yeah,
I will
yeah, I
say,
love the
to build
connection.
on Coast real quick. We've been doing this for years now, right? We every Tuesday morning at 8:15, me, Nikosi, and two other very dear friends just get together, and it's wide open vulnerability. It's not long. We just lay it out, what happy, sad, or some anywhere in between, and just have this space of vulnerability. And we always end with a little prayer, and we say "I love you," which is maybe a little weird for for Black men to say to each other before they get off a call, but it's just knowing that community exists is a huge self-care practice for me. But sorry to cut you off, Coach. Going over to
No, I
you.
think you're right on. Yeah, that community, being able to share, being able to know that other parents like you that are kind of going through some of the same things. I love the connection, like to my child's self care, and you asking that question. When I first saw the kind of the tagline of "Parents Don't Understand," I was like, man, I'm gonna have to talk about all the times I've messed up and not showed it, because I entered into this conversation, and when my daughter was even showing first signs of mental health challenges, I probably discounted it, right? There's a lot of cultural context around that. I'm like, Rosa Parks didn't,
Not Rosa Parks didn't. I'm sure she had anxiety. Kosi, she had to have at least anxiety.
I know she had it, but she had to keep on going.
Rosa's
And so, but it's
depress them
right?
dishes.
We have been, historically under like a lot of mental stress and mental health, and like obviously there's a stigma behind it, but also we didn't have the space and the time and so I've had to, through my daughter, give myself the space, and it's actually illuminated how at times I haven't handled my own mental health issues in a healthy way, because I've been telling myself like, keep on going.
So what do you do?
And so what I do, so yoga is my thing. Yeah, appreciate that.
Big
Yoga,
time. Yeah.
meditation, that's like my thing.
It is.
And that has been.
I'm telling you, this
He goes to a
the
studio, like
poses this man can do. I'm telling you, it's pretty remarkable.
he works out. You do that. Yeah, there are a lot of outlets for sure. You ride your bike.
Right,
You
my
do
bike. I get
that?
outside. I get in nature. All the things, and honestly, all the things that I've asked my daughter to start doing to be helpful, I've just taken that alongside. Again, that's part of the demonstrating. So like the journaling, I picked up journaling, and I have a gratitude journal, and affirmations, and all of those things that I've asked her to kind of take up to boost her mental health. I'm kind of right alongside with her doing the same thing, including, last thing is therapy. Like we all need it.
We all have our own.
And so try to get it and get to therapy as much as I possibly can.
That's awesome. Kevin, Melissa, what about y'all? How do you take care of your own mental health?
Yeah, I was just going to add really quickly in response to Daisy's comment that the reality is a lot of us are really bad at taking time out and taking care of ourselves. And I just want to like briefly encourage all of us to recognize that I personally don't believe in balance. I think that life more ebbs and flows. And I think it's when you find a rhythm in something and life calms down, you might be able to find a moment where you can breathe, take a moment. And sometimes it literally just looks like pulling up to your house and spending an additional 10 minutes before you walk into the house, because that's where you have to put the hat of mother, of wife, of husband, of daughter, all of these hats on. You need to get to started on homework, and 5th grade math is different than when I was in 5th grade. Okay. And you got to start cooking dinner, and you need to start worrying about tomorrow and all of these things. And I think we have to be careful that like, you don't want to get so discouraged by the fact that you haven't found the time to self-care. You know what I mean? Because then it's like the opposite effect of what we're trying to do here. And so I think it's okay to understand that if you are in a busy season of life, find the moments, however they may look. And if it doesn't look like 30 minutes, if it doesn't look like a vacation, if it doesn't look like a massage and a pedicure and a manicure, because those aren't things that you just simply, life hasn't afforded you the privilege, whether that's financial or time to do. Sometimes self-care is staying in the car for an additional 10 minutes.
Find the moment, even if it's in the driveway. Find the moment. Amen to that. Hey, y'all, we gotta go over to some folks who are going to be an awesome addition to this conversation, because we are really getting into it now. I am so excited to one, pass this next segment over to Kevin and Melissa, who are going to facilitate, and also introduce you to two amazing experts, Dr. Aljuan Tart and Dr. Regina Miranda. Dr. Tart is a psychologist. He's a minister, speaker, media host. You've seen him on CNN and Headline News. He's also the recipient of an NAACP award for a lifetime of work counseling youth, along with couples and families. Dr. Regina Miranda is a professor of psychology at Hunter College. He's an advisor for the Ad Council Sound It Out campaign, this amazing campaign we've been talking about. And she's an expert at helping empower parents and caregivers to have meaningful conversations with their middle schoolers. Kev, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk to the docs.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Doctors, welcome one and welcome all. Thank you guys for taking this time with us. We're just going to jump right in to your expertivity-ness.
Yeah, that's not a word, but
that is, man. Look it up. Look it up. You got to spell it right the first time or you won't find it. So when we refer to mental health, help us break that down. What is your definition and what does that encompass?
Dr. Tart.
Dr. Tart, I'm sorry about that.
So when we're looking at mental health, first of all, thanks for having me. When we're looking at mental health, we're looking at kids' emotional well-being, how they feel. We're focusing on kids' psychological well-being, what they think, and we're also focusing on their social connectedness. Are they connected to other peers? But here's the thing, like, how many of us have really struggled when we ask our kids, how are you doing? And they say, fine. We hate that word fine because it means nothing, right? Really what we should be asking them is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your life? This is called motivational interviewing, and all psychologists use it. This is how we get people to open up pretty quickly. If you ask your adolescents how they're doing on a scale of 1 to 10, you're going to be surprised how many say 3, 2, 5. And that gives you an opportunity to open up and say why. And then you'll start opening up about what's going on with our kids. And then really, really quickly, we are in a state of mental health crisis. 57% of teen girls report being persistently sad and feeling hopeless. 42% of all students feel persistently sad and hopeless. These are our children. And I have 3, 16, a 6, and a 1-year-old. Pray for me, right? And 29% experience poor mental health. But here's the shocking statistic. 1 in 3 teen girls considered suicide.
Wow.
1 in 3. That's a 60% increase since 2013. So we have to connect and we have to be engaged in what's going on with our children's mental health, because they're crying out for our help and we have to engage them.
Yeah, Dr. Miranda, before I get to you, I have a question for you. I want to just say something. And Nkosi reminded me of this. He was saying that, Rosa Parks didn't have this. I think in the Black community, I've heard this before. I just want to repeat it here. Mental health has always been an issue. We just didn't have the language for anxiety, depression, bipolar. Anxiety was, your uncle nerves bad. Bipolar was, your auntie getting her moods. Depression is, he just sad, and like that language was there as best as we had it. We just didn't have access to the resources. That's why we was always, we'll go take it to Jesus. And in the Bible, they talk about that man was hearing voices. Mm-hmm. That's schizophrenia. They just didn't have the DSM 4 or 5 yet. So they just said that boy got a demon. No, he's schizophrenic. He's hallucinating. So I think it's very important to understand that Jesus is great. I love him. He's very important to me. But if I broke my leg, I would go to a surgeon because Jesus helped him too. So I just want to say that to all of us who grew up in the church and don't, we're a little hesitant, because it was me, a little hesitant to talk to a therapist, especially, and the last thing I want to add, Black folks, you over there telling family business. You over there sharing a bit. Listen, my mom was poking fun at me the other day. Bless her, I love her. Well, one of my kids go to the therapist, and I said, yes, because I was raised by you. God bless you. I'm trying to make it through. So, Dr. Miranda, what language do you have for us in regards to mental health versus emotional well-being. Help us kind of unpack some of that.
Yeah, so our emotional well-being has to do with how we navigate how we feel, how we're feeling, and how that interacts with our environment, our social environment, our internal life. And we know that navigating our emotions and learning to navigate them is a fundamental part of being a human being. And sometimes we feel more positive emotions, sometimes more negative emotions, and that's okay. And that's a natural part of being human. What happens is that we tend to think that we have to be, in order to have good mental health, it's being happy all the time and not experiencing anxiety, not experiencing sadness. But those emotions are critical because they provide information to us. There's a reason that we have them. And so it's important to consider that, some kids will spend more time with some emotions than others. And there's a lot of variability in what kids bring to the table as far as their emotional life. And that's okay. And it's important to try to learn. Each kid is different. And so there's no formula for what makes, quote unquote, good mental health, right? So it's about really navigating our emotional life. The other thing I wanted to add to what Dr. Tart said is that we've become more aware of mental health and the importance of mental health as a result of the pandemic. But in fact, we were already seeing increases in mental health difficulties and also suicidal thoughts, suicidal behaviors among young people over the past 2 decades. So we were already experiencing these increases in the United States even before the pandemic. But one thing that the pandemic has done, because we've all been experiencing this collective stressor, is turned our attention to mental health. And so I'm glad that we're having these conversations more and more, and that people are interested in mental health, because we know that our mental health is tied to our physical health. Sometimes we think that we should pay attention when something hurts in our bodies, but really, there are times when things hurt in our, to use non-professional language, maybe when something hurts in our hearts, that affects other things that hurt in our bodies. And so our physical and emotional well-being are intertwined, and addressing both is important.
Yeah, and on that same note, what are the connection points between our mental health and our physical health? Can they influence each other? Is one impactful more than the other? Can one, kind of kickstart the other?
Absolutely, they go hand in hand. One impacts the other for sure. And there's research suggesting that for chronic illnesses, for example, our mental health impacts the course of chronic illness, and so it's intertwined.
And what we also see is, especially for populations who've been experienced to high levels of trauma, right? I went to public high school, and we would party, Kevin, Melissa, and people would get to shooting. And 5 minutes later, we were right back to dancing. Like, man, the party got better after people started shooting. I'm just being honest. All right. All right. But the next day, I'm at the ATM, I'm looking around. People are on the bus looking around. And what I'm saying is that in our communities where there's high amounts of trauma, there's something called allostatic load. Basically means we build up a load or a tolerance to stress to where we don't even feel it anymore. We don't even emotionally feel stress. We feel like it's just another day. This is just how it is. And then we end up having gut issues. And everyone knows that the gut is called the second brain. Start having headaches, start having chronic disease, started having problems in your shoulders, start snapping, young kids start bedwetting. And so when we start talking about that connection to our bodies, a lot of what we experience in our head and our heart is experienced throughout our body through somatic or physical complaints.
One thing I want to ask both of you doctors really quickly on that same point. I believe, and this is just my opinion, I'm curious if you guys agree or disagree or have any further knowledge. I feel like the inundation of bad news on social media impacts us. The school shootings, mass shootings, not just school. Mass shootings happen so often, they're almost as commonplace as seeing a bad car accident. I feel like I see that just as often. Ralph Yarl goes to the wrong house and picking up his brother, and he gets shot. And I'm like, we are encouraging our son to learn to drive, And then I'm just like, you can't even make a mistake and go to the wrong, because we gonna want him to pick up his brother from his house, and you got bad service. And I feel like that just kind of weighs on us. Is there any connection to the amount of negativity in the news, and how that we consume, and how that kind of lays in our bodies, even though it's not directly happening to us?
What we know is today's generation has more access to news via this phone than we ever did. And we know that it's negatively affecting them. We know, and I'm sure Dr. Miranda would agree, we know that social media is absolutely bad for teen girls. It's just bad. There's no good data about, and matter of fact, the more our kids are on social media, the more they're affected. So imagine waking here, just really briefly, imagine waking up and seeing a couple of things. This is what's going on with kids. All right. So they're seeing what's happening in the news, whereas before kids didn't watch the news, and they're seeing this on their feed. Two, kids are waking up, looking at TikTok, looking at Instagram, at their friends hanging together, but guess who's not there? Them. Right. And then teen girls are looking and they're comparing themselves to other teens, and they're feeling worse about themselves being on social media. So unequivocally, unless Dr. Miranda has other research, we know that social media is bad for teens, especially teen girls.
Well, I mean, social media definitely has an impact on our teens' social and emotional functioning. I'll say with the caveat that social media in and of itself is not bad. It's what it reflects about how we relate to each other. Sure. So I think what happens on social media is that we have these people are presenting snapshots of their lives, but it's not really their full lives. And so when there's social comparison happening, you may think, oh, like this person just went on this, did this thing that, and I'm not doing that, or looks this way. And there's body image comparisons. But also it prevents us from having authentic, deeper conversation. So when you normally maybe might pick up the phone or have a face-to-face conversation, you shoot a text, or maybe there's you're on Facebook or Twitter. I'm aging myself because I don't use TikTok. So you're using social media as a form of brief communication that doesn't allow for deeper conversation. And so that can keep our kids from learning to problem solve. So when they have a conflict, to really have conversations with each other. And that's why it's so important as parents to try to have those conversations with our kids outside of social media, because to model what it's like to problem solve and to deal with issues that come up with people, with each other.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely, even as adults, we can have a lot of issues consuming social media, and I'm almost 40, so I can only imagine that impact on our kids. I definitely want to get over to our parents, Helen and Nkosi. Do you guys have any questions for the doctors?
Yes, we wrote down a few questions. Because of time, I'll let Helen ask her question, and if we have time, I can ask.
Okay, cool. Dr. Tart, this is for you. So we're raising our daughters in environments that aren't necessarily representative of them. Can you speak to the unique experiences of Black and Brown children in majority environments as it relates to mental health or implications on mental health?
I mean, when we start talking about who you are, it's important to walk into a classroom and not feel like you have to prove yourself. That's the biggest thing that we see as a push. My oldest daughter and I just visited Howard University. Shout out to the Bison family, because in our high school, especially in advanced classes, there's not a lot of African-American females, right? And so there was a lot of a relief to be able to see other students who have 4.0s and not feel like you have to prove yourself. And so when we start talking about a teenage girl who's trying to find herself, part of the reason that teenage girls are stressed is that early on they're comparing themselves and trying to get into these colleges and trying to fit in. But the main thing that teen girls are stressed about, two things: grades, which is surprising to parents, but two, how other people experience them, especially teen girls, right? As the parents out there, I see the comments going like they hear so much drama starting almost from 4th grade in who they are relative to the social atmosphere. And so we have to help our kids. That's why one of the dangers of social media, and I'm on social media, my daughter's on social media, but we have to help our kids have interpersonal skills to be able to connect without this. That's where our teen girls are struggling. They don't know how to be pro-social. They don't know how to have a conversation. And so we have to help our kids be able to be connected. And if they're in an environment where they're minority, be able to have environments, whether it's church, whether it's Jack and Jill, whether it's debate. We're here in Atlanta where the Harvard Debate Club is really big, just having experiences where they're not the only one and they can feel validated among others.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I have a question for Dr. Miranda if I have a little time here. So my daughter, probably in the 5th grade, started showing early signs of like some challenges with navigating emotions. And as she was growing older, we just really attributed it to, it's just part of natural development. We started reading the books and it was like, okay, just seems like just in line with what we should expect. And then with COVID, but then it took us a while to realize like, no, she was exhibiting, like a heightened kind of challenge with mental health. And so my question is like, how can parents distinguish between what just might be like natural expectations of going through puberty and adolescence with like, no, there's a real kind of challenge with, coping and navigating emotions?
Well, first I want to say that COVID is a big stressor, is a major stressor, and we're not even fully out of it. And so it's natural that we will experience challenges, even as parents, right? Our kids will experience some challenges, but it's okay to be experiencing challenges due to COVID-19 because it's an unprecedented stressor that's happening worldwide. It's a worldwide pandemic. But in terms of just signs to look for in kids is to compare their what's happening to what they're usually like, what their usual functioning is like. And so seeing a dramatic change in their behavior, in who they spend time with or whether they spend time with people, how they communicate with people. So seeing increases in social isolation, for example, or sadness, greater sadness and tearfulness. And some kids, when they're feeling down, don't express it with sadness, but may be more irritable or maybe more argumentative. Changes in their sleep from usual, in their appetite, in their weight, expressing feeling like they're worthless, and feeling excessively guilty for things that are not their fault. Feeling like sometimes kids, when they are struggling emotionally, they may not want to burden others. They might feel like if they talk about it, they're being a burden to others. And so kids may start to feel like they are burdens to their families and that their families would be better off without them. So expressing those types of thoughts, people would be better off without me. I wish I didn't exist. I wish I weren't born. Or even some kids, when they have trouble managing their feelings, will engage in self-harm behavior, will hurt themselves as a way of trying to cope with their feelings. Or if they feel numb, sometimes they're trying to feel something, or may have thoughts about suicide or have made a suicide attempt. So all of those are signs that it might be time to seek additional support, additional help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Miranda, we're going to stay with you. What are some ways to teach middle schoolers about mental health, emotions, and self-care? And how can I encourage my kids to express their feelings and handle their emotions on a regular basis?
Well, so I think that first, it's serving as an example ourselves. So oftentimes as parents, we are focused so much on our kids and what they're feeling that, we want them to open up, but we're not willing to open up ourselves. So I think the first thing as parents we can do is serve as an example ourselves, talk about our own feelings, talk about how we are processing stuff that's happening in our lives. And if we need support, seeking support when we need it. But also, there are some resources that the Sound It Out campaign has provided. So the Sound It Out campaign, it uses the power of music to help parents, caregivers, and their kids have conversations about their emotional well-being and mental health. And they have put out a conversation starter pack that is a game that parents can play with their kids that provides prompts for parents to use to talk to kids about anxiety, about different emotions, about their support systems, social media, racism, and other things that impact kids' emotional functioning. If I could also say one other thing is, folks were talking about scripture before, and there's this scripture that I think about when I think about my own daughter and the transition from being a kid to being a middle schooler and then teenager. Sometimes when our relationships start to change with our kids, right, they start to not want to spend as much time with us. They don't think we're cool anymore. They're they're looking up to other people and not us. And I remember when I was having some reactions to like, oh, our relationship is different. She's a little bit more slightly more rebellious. My daughter's not that rebellious, but it was more than usual. And I was in church one day and listening to a sermon on, there's a scripture about not putting new wine in old wineskins because the wineskins will burst. And that's kind of what it's like when your child is transitioning from being a kid to being a preteen to being a teenager. We're still using our old frameworks like those old wineskins to interpret.
Come on, wineskins.
That's good,
Dr. Preach,
Miranda.
you better preach.
I remember when I was sitting there and it clicked for me, like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing with my daughter. And it keeps me from appreciating who she's becoming now. And when I made that shift in my mind, I was able to really start feeling more curious about where she was and what her interests were. And instead of mourning, you mourn like the old, like when mommy was like, I want mommy to come to school. And now she's like, no, don't come to my school. Don't.
Yeah.
We like embarrassing her, but, there's this, so it's like this shift that we have to make as parents to appreciate who they're becoming, even as we mourn who they used to be, in relationship to us.
Yeah.
Listen, Dr. Miranda, you all in my life. I appreciate if you backed up a little bit and mind your business, because that new wineskins was talking about something else, and I'm talking about mourning. And you know what? We're gonna go to Daisy, okay? Daisy, we're gonna go to you right now so I can process what she's all up in my kitchen. So Daisy, go ahead. If you have a question.
So one question that I have is, what role can faith and spirituality play in helping our children cope with their emotions and mental health?
Well, when we start thinking about faith, it gives us a framework. All right. So we start talking about resiliency. Where do you get that from? So let's start with scripture. Like, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. That's Proverbs 15:22. How can we counsel our kids if we don't know what's going on with them, if we don't have a relationship? We can go to church, and if we don't feel anything, if we're not connected, we're really just going through the motions. And we can do that in our household. And so when parents are not connected, parents are stressed, and parents cannot connect because it's so difficult to connect to our teens, especially today when they don't have an emotional vocabulary. There are a lot of boys who just don't have an emotional vocabulary. We have to actually teach them emotions. You have to say, I feel sad, upset, frustrated. I feel emasculated. I feel overwhelmed. I feel traumatized. We have to teach them that. And so when we start talking about faith, it allows us to talk to kids about resiliency. It gives us a framework to talk about why bad things happen. Right. So we can open up the Bible and talk about, all right, God does allow things to happen, everything. So we can actually teach Bible stories about why things happen. And it also allows them to be able to have a sense of self-worth that we found that kids who do not have a faith base, regardless of their religious background, when you can say that God is your father and you're his son or daughter, and have value, and being able to talk about that, and having a God who loves you unconditionally, which is different from social media. When kids have that base and know that, especially when we start talking about suicide prevention, that they can do something that may be shameful, that may be embarrassing, embarrassing and that they can have forgiveness for their sins, that's a beautiful gift to give to our kids, that kids who lack that faith base and whatever religion don't have, and they feel like they have to punish themselves. Or we see with a lot of kids who have embarrassing videos, whether it's a fight or a sexual video, feel like they have to hide or even think about harming themselves to get away from the toxic shame. So we know from the research, having a religious base actually helps our kids to be healthier, happier, and more resilient.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that? I know the question was for Dr. Tart, but could I add something to that?
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to also address that sometimes, I mean, as someone who's grown up going to church my whole life, sometimes our communities of faith can be places that don't affirm our identities and don't affirm who we are. And there are implicit messages that we get. And as parents, when we hold to our faith, sometimes we want to impose that. And when kids start asking questions like, well, what about this and what about that? And sometimes when we don't hold to a particular theology, for example, there can be implicit messages that we give our kids that they are not loved if they aren't a certain way. And so one of the beautiful things about our faith is that unconditional love, whether you believe that God is father or mother, right, or non or genderful or not one gender, but that there's this unconditional love, and that no matter what you do, that unconditional love stays. And so I know the way that I grew up with a very faithful mother, but I learned that if I didn't meet certain conditions, that God might not love me. And so I think that is a danger sometimes that we, in our communities of faith, when we, as we are arguing, over different types of theology, and we focus on the rules and not on the basic love God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? We tend to get hung up on all of the details, and so then we give implicit messages to our kids that they are not loved unless they meet XYZ criteria. So just something I wanted to bring up.
Thank you.
I absolutely love that point. I actually think it was really powerful and really important as a person who grew up very churchy. So I definitely appreciate that. I just really quickly want to recap some of the gems that were dropped in the event that the chat didn't catch it. Number one, Dr. Tart talking about modeling behavior, and this is so important. More things are caught than taught.
Yeah.
And so your kids are looking at what you are doing as a model for what they will do. So don't just say it, model the behavior that you are looking for. So if you want your child to discuss their day with them, they need to see you discussing your day, so they understand the language and the words and what to say and how to say it. The other thing that was really important was identifying feelings. I don't remember. I'm not going to say who said what. I'm just going to lay it out. Identifying your feelings. I found this emotions wheel. And a lot of times we categorize our emotions as happy, sad, angry. No. Are you humiliated? Are you embarrassed? Are you disappointed? Are you frustrated? There are so many other emotions. And a lot of times anger comes out because we can't readily articulate and identify how we're feeling. So now we just have an attitude. So being able to have a discussion with your child, not only is it good for your child, it's good for you too, okay? Especially if you're in a relationship. That's a different story for a different day. But being able to readily identify your own feelings and have that discussion with your child. Last thing, these conversation starters, let me tell you something. If you have a young child, but especially if you have a teenager and you get in the car and you are feeling the anxiety of, what am I finna talk to this little 16-year-old child about? Because I don't know. These things are so helpful. They're just a great way, a great starting point, conversation starter for you to simply engage and build that relationship, that rapport with your child that we all want to have. And that creates the safe space for your child to come back to come back to you, because they're not just talking to you when things are bad. They're just talking to you because that's the environment that you've established in your household.
And listen, I don't want you to be afraid of them. They're not all like super deep. They have simple ones like, would you rather be in an action movie or a comedy movie? You got to trick the kids in the conversation. And you can't come to them just about drugs and sex. What's one superpower you wish you had? And then you could go, why do you use social media? And they're like, oh no. Next thing you know, they talking. They like, I be crying and I miss you. They're like, oh, they done tricked you done tricked them in. You got to leave them in with the stuff where they don't expect it. But I'm not even joking. I see this and listen, I've gotten to the habit, like most parents. How was school? Fine. What did you learn? Nothing. How are your friends? Good. I don't know words. Then they get on their phone. Yeah, so I told Sharon she ain't coming over to my locker no more. Talk to me like that. So I'm going to use these with my kids because it's a 30-minute ride from home. Sure. I'm going to ask them a different one every day and then just let it vibe out. Just let it vibe out. Don't make a big deal about it. So I am actually going to learn how to use this because I want to build that relationship. And as our kids transition, we want to be that safe place for them to come back home when they need us.
And we have a question for Dr. Miranda. It's for Dr. Okay, Josh. Sorry, y'all. Hold on a second. Okay. This is for Dr. Miranda. What about if I think I have a problem or a loved one may be having a problem? How do I know when to seek professional care and how do I find it?
Well, again, it's okay to have problems. It's okay to not always be doing okay. And especially during these times, it's okay to still not be doing okay. We shouldn't expect after going through a pandemic that it's all going to go back to normal and we're not going to be okay. So sometimes it takes a while for the effects of a stressor to manifest. So if you're seeing everybody going about their business and you're not feeling okay, that's okay. But where you start to get concerned is if it's interfering with how you're functioning. If you're having trouble getting up to get to work on time, and it's and you're in danger of losing your job, for example, or if you're having problems in your social relationships, and if how you're feeling is affecting how you're relating to other people. And so if you're seeing significant changes in functioning, not being able to not enjoying the things that you normally would enjoy doing, and that might be an indication. Or if you're having thoughts about thoughts like I'd be better off if I were dead, or wanting to die, wanting to kill oneself. That's an indication that it may be time to seek support. And there are resources. So, for example, if someone's in crisis, there's a number called 988, which is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline that can connect you to resources. There are also other resources like for therapyforblackgirls.com, which is a website for Black girls, and Latinx therapy, which is a website that helps find therapists for people who identify as Latinx and are looking for a Latinx therapist. So those are just some resources, but also the Sound It Out campaign, if you go to sounditouttogether.org, also lists other resources on the website.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Doctors Tart and Miranda. We're going to welcome back Joshua back into the conversation now. And thank you also, parents. Listen, I ain't going to hold y'all. I thought I was just going to be talking. I might have gotten just as much out of this as any other person on the panel as a parent. I really was like, man, she really on my business with that wine skin. I'm going to have me a glass of wine just to deal with what you said, Dr. Miranda. And you too, Dr. Tart, with your little monochromatic burgundy suit with the shirt.
Hey, brother. Come on.
And I just clarify, let me give my pastor credit for that wineskins thing. That's where they're.
Hey, I'm trying to match the wineskin. That's what this is. I'm trying to show my wineskin. Hey, willpower, Kev. Willpower. Y'all said y'all want to, be fine at 40. All right. So don't worry about that.
You done did good.
I
Before
love
we
it.
turn it
Come
over to
on, Fine and
Joshua,
40.
really
I
quickly,
love
I
it.
just want to shout out the stage crew. They are in the chat. They have represented. They showed up.
Yes.
Catherine, you are amazing. She was dropping links in there as if she worked for the Sound It Out campaign. Okay, thank you guys so much. You guys always stand by us, do right by us, and I just want to make sure I personally say thank y'all for sure.
Awesome.
Yes, y'all got the stage clappers up in there. We thank y'all.
Yes, we appreciate you, Kat. Thank you. We're seeing you in the chat. Also, just lots of folks. I mean, it's just been an amazing event. And one huge thanks to Kevin and Melissa. Can we all give them a round of applause for
Put some
hosting
clapping
this
emojis in
evening?
there. I need to feel my words of affirmation.
Dr. Tart and Dr. Miranda, you guys have been absolutely amazing and informative and inspiring, and we just so appreciate you. Daisy, Helene, and Coast, thank you so much. You guys have just been so vulnerable and helpful. You all are experts in and of yourself. You ain't got to know everything to be expert. You are living this life out every day. If y'all enjoyed it, this session tonight, let us know in the chat. I'm literally looking at the YouTube and Facebook stuff now. We'd love to hear from you, and let us know what you think, and stay connected to this work, y'all. There's so many resources that are out there that can help you talk to your kids. Folks have mentioned several times sounditouttogether.org. Again, it's sounditouttogether.org. That's where you can get those conversation starter packs and access that information. I want to thank Pivotal Ventures and the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council. They're why we're here today. They sponsored this campaign, and they're sort of curating all of these resources. Again, if somebody's really going through it and they need to have a crisis line, again, that's 988 is the number that you dial. It's 24/7 free and confidential support. And then finally, let us know how tonight was for you. We'd love your feedback. You can go to a website that I think is going to be on the screen in a moment, or scan a QR code. Let us know. Just take a quick minute. I'm gonna give it a second. I'm gonna pause, get the QR code. And we would really appreciate. Lots of folks are appreciating the event in the chat. We'd love to know more from you about what you liked, what we could do better next time, and so forth. Also, thank you, Melissa, for shouting out your amazing team there. We want to also talk about the amazing team behind this event: Warsan Helene, Alexander Blanc, Taylor Mason. We appreciate you. Sherry Thompson and Nakia Alfred from the Ad Council. You all are amazing, and we just thank you so much. Finally, let's send it back over to where we started, our fearless leaders for tonight, who are doing great work in so many spaces. Kevin and Melissa, over to you to close us out.
Yeah, I just want to thank all you parents for coming in and spending an evening with us. Again, to the parents who are here, the doctors on the council, to Melissa, my wife, for sitting here with me, and Cam, he's been behind the scenes for us with the tech checks and all that type of stuff. So I hope, and this will stay up. I saw a lot of people asking, can we share this? This will be posted on my Facebook and my YouTube page. So if you want to share this with a friend, you can. It'll be right there. We're not going to take it down. I've had an amazing time. Liz, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I want to say that parents, we all we got.
Man,
we all we got. So we got to stick together and have these type of events so we can share. Daisy was amazing in terms of like just the vulnerability there. That's so relatable, girl. We get it. And so just having these conversations, I hope you not only leave feeling seen, but empowered, and also with a little bit more knowledge than you came in with.
Yes.
And with that, we love you all. Go ahead, go to bed. Wash up before you go to bed. You know you did a lot today. Just go ahead and wash up a little bit and then get to bed. Thank you, Go Psycho, so much. We'll see you next time.
All right. Good night. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Mija. Talk to me.
It's nothing.
Please.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I have to go.
Isa.
else is gonna